Welcome to the session on secrets, symbols, and snapshots. I'm pleased to introduce Eshan Goonesekera, a renowned writer, photographer, and publisher based in London. His work has been shaped by decades of returning to Sri Lanka again and again with patience, curiosity, and a refusal to look only at the obvious. Eshan is best known for combining visual storytelling with travel writing, producing work that moves fluidly between image, place, and narrative. Over the years, he has built a substantial photographic archive documenting Sri Lanka's geography, from the southern coastline and dry zone stupas to everyday life, ritual, and landscape. He is the author and publisher of the Elite Guide to Sri Lanka, released under his own publishing imprint, often referred to as Paradise Isle Publications, London. The guide reflects his belief that Sri Lanka is best understood through depth rather than checklist tourism, by lingering in places, noticing details, and engaging with history and culture beyond the obvious landmarks. Alongside his travel work, Eshan is also a novelist. His debut novel, The Seventh Shrine, is an adventure narrative rooted in Sri Lanka, which is in the process of being adapted for film. If we have time, we will talk about this towards the end of our session. As a photographer, Eshan places strong emphasis on composition, perception, and the eye, often arguing that attentiveness matters more than equipment. His work consistently returns to themes of light, memory, and continuity. This morning, we'll talk about photography and travel, but also about memory, distance, belonging, and the ethics of representation. And perhaps by the end, we'll leave not with answers, but with better ways of paying attention. Eshan, welcome to this session on secrets, symbols, and snapshots. Before we dive into your remarkable travel book, please tell us in a nutshell about your childhood, your family background, and how you got interested in travel photography.
Thank you. Thank you, Seneka. Welcome, and thank you for being here. So my parents are originally from Gaul. My father was in the Foreign Office. My mother was a teacher at Southlands, Gaul. My father was stationed in London from the Foreign Office to open the High Commission, and my mother joined him shortly after. My father sadly passed away when I was very young, but my mother decided to stay on in London. She was a superb cook, and weekends our family home was filled with lots of people enjoying traditional rice and curry. Now, at the age of about 8 or 9, my mother used to stick me in the library to read the classics while she went shopping. Unbeknown to her, there was a bookshelf right next to me. The lower shelf was photography. So I went and studied books on photography. And when she came back, I swapped it for the classics. And this is where I learnt the chemistry and the physics of photography. And by 10, I was given a camera. And by 17, I was inside 10 Downing Street photographing Mrs. Thatcher, Premadasa, and others. And I photographed the Queen and Prince Charles on many occasions, including in Sri Lanka. My first love is photography. My second love is food, as you can probably tell. At 23, I opened my first restaurant in London. It was an Indian restaurant, and I later did other cuisines, Sri Lankan and modern British. It was mainly a gallery for my photographs, which I love to stage. It was humbling to see quite famous people coming into the restaurant, and people always ask me about that. People like David Bowie, Liam Gallagher, Anthony Hopkins, Richard Branson, Kylie Minogue. As a photographer, I've been to over 40 countries photographing, and I feel that there's nothing like travel to broaden your horizons.
Thank you, Eshan, for that illuminating preamble. What I have read is the second edition of your marvelous travel book. When did the first edition come out, and how long did it take you to put it all together?
The first edition took about 4 or 5 years to compile. I've got to do the research, I've got to put the specific locations in and then go and photograph them. I also had a Colombo restaurant guide, rated in terms of food service and ambience. And my second edition, which I brought out last year, took about 9 months to a year to complete. And I believe it's a pretty good compilation of what you need to know in Sri Lanka.
You grew up in London, but have spent decades returning to Sri Lanka with a camera and notebook. How has seeing the island from both inside and outside shaped the way you look at it? And what do you think that distance allows you to see that others might miss?
Well, obviously, I'm looking at it from a tourist point of view. I'm just going to put up some slides so you can see what's inside the book. There are 2 versions of the book. So I obviously look at Sri Lanka initially as a tourist, but I live in London and the architecture is phenomenal. But as I live in London, I don't recognize it as that. I see it every day. But a tourist would view it quite differently. But the deeper I dig in and understand the significance of things in Sri Lanka, the better insight that I get, which is important.
In the very first page of your travel book, you state that Prince Vijaya came to Sri Lanka with the blessings of Lord Buddha. Now, is this fact or fiction?
Well, this could be a little bit of a contentious issue here. Now, it's a theory, and it's my theory, but basically, Prince Vijaya and Prince Siddhartha were both Northern Indian princes. I believe they would have known each other, and I believe that Vijaya came to Sri Lanka with the blessings of Lord Buddha to spread the word and to make the island a cradle of Buddhism. Now, Buddha passed into nirvana on the day that Vijaya landed in Sri Lanka. And the weakness of most men, as you probably know, is a beautiful woman. And Kueni of the Yakas was the beautiful woman. Vijaya only had eyes for her and forgot about his mission. The chronicles credit Mahinda in 247 BC of converting King Devanampiya and the island, but subsequent kings from Vijaya's time brought wives from the Sakaya clan in India. So I believe that Buddhism was prevalent on the island before Mahinda came, and that's why it was so easy for Mahinda to convert the king and the country.
That's a very interesting hypothesis. Do you plan to write about it sometime, seriously?
Yes, I have a novel, and that's it within the novel, certainly.
Now, the first word in the title, Elite Travel Guide to Sri Lanka, is intriguing. Elite, that's the word I'm talking about. What kind of traveler did you have in mind when you came up with that title?
Well, I do want to appeal to the educated traveller. I think it's highly important that you know your subject. Wherever you travel in the world, you need to know your subject, study it before you go there. We used to have charters that came to Sri Lanka that people were just going to beaches and drinking on beaches. It's of no value whatsoever. I want to appeal to the high-end traveller especially. We really need for people to understand what Sri Lanka is about. But most importantly, we've got high-end products here. We've got fantastic sites and beaches, wonderful hotels, so we should be appealing to the high-end traveller, and that, I think, would help us a lot.
Yeah, one thing I do appreciate about your book is that you have put a lot of historical information into it. It's packed with a lot of historical data, which makes it fascinating reading. So let's move on. We can't cover all the spots described in your book, but let's briefly discuss a few of them. For example, Sigiriya, Sakula Chakra, Girihandusaya, Tantirimale, Jaffna, Eller. You can shuffle them in any order you wish.
I just want to bring your attention to this photograph. So this photograph was taken just 2 months before the tsunami. This was in Yala, and this was possibly the first place that the tsunami hit the country. Literally just 2 months before I was there. That's Kumana, and we'll come back to Kumana later. So I have two versions of the book, a paperback A5 and a smaller version, which is a pocket version, and I'll show you. So that gives a different perspectives. Sadly, the aspect ratio is not correct on this, but you get the idea. Mineria, let's go to the shadow of Adam's Peak. People climb Adam's Peak to see the sunrise. What you should be looking for is that amazing shadow that it casts over the land. And it's very rare, because obviously there's the weather is inclement, so you've got to be lucky. And this is the south. Right, so this is Sigiriya. Absolutely, if there's only one thing you do in Sri Lanka, go and climb Sigiriya. Kashyapa had an astronomer on the top of his rock, astrologer, who discovered that planets go around the sun. Now, this was 1,000 years before Copernicus made his heliocentric observations. The engineering is fascinating. It is certainly the eighth wonder of the world. I spent many a time climbing this rock and believing that I was the reincarnation of Kashyapa, as probably many men do, because he had 500 concubines, so that might have been the reason. When you climb Sigiriya, I advise you to take a guide, because you will miss a lot. These guys are incredibly knowledgeable. Do use them. You will learn a lot.
Are you done with Sigiriya?
Yes.
Okay, I want to ask you a little question.
Right.
I believe you have a secret to tell us. Something about a secret
okay,
tunnel.
and so that's a good point. So one of the guides, I had heard that there was a secret channel, a secret escape for the king from the top of the rock. And I'd been asking people for years about this, and everybody said, no, there isn't. And when I asked one of the guides about this, he said, yes, there is. And he said, I'll take you. And he took me to the top of the rock. And he said, you see that there's pools up there, water channels and whatever. And he said, you see that pool? He said, at the bottom of that pool is a plug. If you unplug it, the water goes out a mile away. He says, that is the channel for the escape route for the king. So fascinating, and this is from the guide.
Amazing, okay.
Okay, so this is Girihandusaya. This is the oldest edifice dedicated to Buddhism. During the Buddha's lifetime, two merchants came, and they were carrying a lock of Buddha's hair in a gold casket. They slept on this rock, and they had put the casket down, and in the morning, it had embedded into the rock. So they built a cairn there. And then later a Dagaba was built, and then Vatadage was built about the 7th century. But what's important is it's the oldest edifice to Buddhism on the island.
Just a moment. Can you tell the audience where exactly this place is?
Okay, so this is Girihandusaya. So this is north of Nila Valley. It was closed off during the war, and it was only opened up about 2015 or 14 or something like that. But if you get a chance, it's quite stunning. I would go there. If you look at this flower scroll hall, this is by Nisankamala. There's lots of beautiful monuments in Polonnaruwa, but this flower scroll hall with the vine-like pillars, it's quite stunning. Nisankamala made some beautiful objects. This is one of them. Right, this is Pigeon Island in Nilla Valley. So if you cross over from Nilla Valley, beautiful coral sands and beautiful turquoise seas. Right. This is Tantrimale. So Tantrimale was a place where Sanghamitra came and stayed on her way to Anuradhapura, bringing the bow tree with her in 247 BC. Later, they put a sapling of the bow tree and planted it in here, and they built a monastery around it. What's really interesting about this is that there are caves here which date back 4,000 years, and they've dated that through the cave paintings. So quite stunning. And it's a beautifully serene place. So if you get a chance, do go there. Jaffna, one of my favorite places. The people, the food, absolutely wonderful. There's so much to see. You can go island hopping, you can go to Nagadeepa, you can go to Delft. You know, it's got an incredible vibe. And that's the future of Sri Lanka. I believe there's going to be a lot of tourism in that area. I just hope that they develop it sensibly and sensitively. Because if you take somewhere like Ella, where I've been going for 30, 40 years, it used to be a beautiful old serene town, sleepy little town with amazing vistas. They marketed it incredibly well with the Nine Arch Bridge and Ella Rock and Little Adams Peak. And there's the most amazing train ride, the most beautiful train journey possibly in the world that comes into Ella. But what they've done is they've built on every square inch of Ella, which I think is actually quite sad. And it's really spoilt, that place. It's very, very busy. Is there anything you want to say about Ella?
Yeah. Well, there is some concern among certain quarters of the Sri Lankan population that there is this kind of hippie culture that's taken root in Ella. And they are very concerned that this is going to spread to other parts of the country and so on. I personally believe there's an exaggeration, but what's your take on that?
Well, look, you know what? Tourists having a little bit of weed is no big deal, okay? You know, yes, of course, there are countries in the world, like you go to Goa and places like that, they become hippie backpackers. But these are the people who promote Sri Lanka. The backpackers, you know, go on their Instagram and their social media and they promote Sri Lanka brilliantly. So, you know, having a little bit of weed, and don't forget, it's the locals who are selling them the weed anyway. You know, it's the local shopkeepers and restaurateurs. So, you know, it's no big deal. It's not hard drugs. They're just having soft drugs. So I don't have a problem with it.
Just pause for a moment here. When you spoke about Jaffna, you said you love the food there.
Yes.
What's special about that? Tell us.
Well, I mean, you know, obviously Jaffna uses a different curry powder, but, you know, you've got the Jaffna crab curry, and you've got this wonderful aubergine curries, and just, you know, and breads and, you know, things like that. It's stunning. It really is stunning. And I really, if you haven't been, you must go there. You'll thoroughly, you can have a beach to yourself there. Beautiful beaches out there. Go and enjoy it.
Right. Let's move on. Your work. Are you done?
No. So, okay, this is the Sakwila Chakra. So this is in Anuradhapura near Tisavava. Carved on a rock is a petroglyph. Now, this has baffled archaeologists, historians, and academics for 100 years now. The best guess is it's a map of the universe. We don't know much about it other than it's older than Anuradhapura. But the most popular theory is that it's a functioning stargate. It's a portal used by ancient aliens for interstellar travel and to traverse the universe. That's amazing, isn't it? The Sakwila Chakra.
All right. Are you done with the slides?
Yeah,
right.
That's fine.
Your work consistently avoids postcard cliches. When you arrive in a place, what tells you that something is worth seeing, or more importantly, worth waiting for?
Right. Well, there's always something interesting to see. You point a camera in any direction in Sri Lanka, and you'll get a photograph. There is so much to see. It's so beautiful. But it's your eye. You know, your eye is commanding your photograph. It's making a photograph as opposed to taking a photograph. So the eye is all important. The technical is only a small percentage. I just want to bring your attention to two photographs here. I don't know how well you can see that, but there's a side elevation of the Galvihara. And that's a very unusual way of photographing it, which I love. And then this statue here, which is they say it's Buddha in a cross-arm position, but it may actually be Ananda, his disciple. But again, taking it from that slight angle and with that light, I think really enhances the beauty of the object.
Okay. In terms of waiting and watching and observing, I imagine that you require a lot of patience. Now, would you consider that an important creative tool in photography?
I'm patiently trying to turn this. Oh, right, okay. There's some more of my photographs here. I'm not sure where to point this. Okay. Right, patience. Yes, patience is everything. So this photograph here I took in Yala. I don't go to Yala anymore, by the way, because it's over-visited. But so this was done in Yala, and it was 15 hours for me to get this photograph. You choose the people you go with. I had an idiot on my Jeep who was jumping around and talking too much. You've got to be quiet. You've got to be patient, and you'll get the shot. But it is all about patience and waiting. Really, photography is really about waiting for that shot. And I was very lucky because this I shot at about 5 in the evening. So after 15 hours, I got this in the last half an hour of light. So I was very lucky.
A related question. The eye, you place a lot of emphasis on the eye as a photographer.
Yeah.
Now, I'm sure that most people in the audience know what we mean when we say the eye, but just in case, some people who want to become photographers and don't know, like, what is the most important thing in photography, would you agree that perhaps the most important thing is the eye?
Without doubt, without doubt. Those who have it, have it. If you're an artist, you have it, you understand it. It's difficult to explain, but you get it. It's like a painter who paints. He knows when his painting is finished. I don't know. How does he work that out? But he knows. So if you have the eye, I think it's difficult to teach, but if you're creative and artistic, you have it and you know.
Okay. Your elite travel guide to Sri Lanka feels less like an itinerary and more like a way of paying attention. Now, attention is the key word here. Do you see travel writing as a form of cultural interpretation rather than instruction?
Right. We've got to pay attention. Get off your phones, pay attention. I took some Sri Lankans to the beautiful Scotland Isles and whatever, and most of the journey they were on their phone. I'm looking outside this window, there's beautiful vistas, and they're on their phone. Get off your phones, look. Everywhere you look, there's such beautiful vistas and whatever. But people have a short attention span. What my book does, it just makes you easier. It just formats things easier so that you can read and then discover what you want to see and do in Sri Lanka.
I know that when you are in Sri Lanka, you enjoy getting about in tuk-tuks. Why is this?
I feel connected when I go in tuk-tuks, I really do. I love walking the streets, going to the markets and the kades. That's what we need to do. We can't just go around in coaches and go to one location, another location. You've got to experience the culture and the people. I love going around Velavatta. Go and see all these wonderful kades and rituals that are going on and talk to the locals. When I was in Jaffna, I saw a tuk-tuk there driven by two foreigners. And I saw it said tuk-tuk rental. These guys had driven from Colombo to Jaffna in a tuk-tuk. So I contacted the company when I got back to Colombo, and I said I want to meet up with the directors. And I've put them in my book, and I don't have any advertising whatsoever in my book, but I put them in my book. And the reason is, these backpackers are going around the island. They're not confined to Anuradhapura, Polonnaruwa, Sigiriya. They are finding locations that we've never heard of and we didn't know existed. And then they are putting that out on Instagram. So people like me can see it. I wouldn't have known. But these are the best advertisers of Sri Lanka, better than any tourist board can do. They really are fantastic. Their social media presence is and they're getting to an audience that we could never dream of. So, the tuk-tuk is fantastic. That's why I put them in the book. there are a lot of Sri Lankans who are doing social media, and one of them is Chanel Rodrigo. So I want to say that I love what she does, and there's a lot more, but I just mentioned Chanel. So it all helps towards a positive Sri Lanka.
When you arrive at an ancient monastery or a ruin, does the image come first or the words?
Research comes first. Always research where you want to go, ideally. If not, I go there, I photograph, and then the words will come. But research is all important.
What is the role of light in enhancing the quality of travel photos?
Well, you as an artist, you know what Rembrandt lighting was. It was just one source of light. Photography is all about lighting. The best times to photograph are dusk and dawn. Get up early, use a tripod, dusk and dawn. It's all about the light.
Okay. So in your travel book, you have a huge number of photos. And I'm just amazed at the range of material you have covered. And I've also paid attention to the light that you have used. Could you care to elaborate a bit on that?
Yeah, well, I mean, you have to visit you have to visit many times to really get the photograph that you want. You know, this is Alcana, and I've tried many times to get a good shot of Alcana, but they keep on putting canvas shelters over it, or arches, or building roofs over it. And I could never get the photograph because the light wasn't right, or so on and so forth. And then the weather is inclement. So, you could go to an area and find that you can't take a great shot. So you have to keep reinvesting in going to these areas, and then hopefully you'll turn up with a great shot. And it does take quite some time, or luck. I mean, I told you about 15 hours of photography for that leopard. My cousin goes in the next day, and within half an hour he's seen leopard, bear, elephant, snake, you name it, and walks out and thinks it was a zoo. So, it is about luck as well.
Yeah. This is a good time for my next question. Did any site in Sri Lanka change meaning for you after you photographed it repeatedly over time?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, we're always looking for a better understanding and significance. It's got to be Sigiriya. I mean, the more I think about it, I was Kashyapa. I mean, really, it's such a beautiful place, and the significance grows, and I learn more about it all the time. I think it's wonderful.
Much of what you photograph, temples, ruins, everyday rituals, carries historical and emotional weight. Do you feel a responsibility when photographing Sri Lanka, knowing that images often outlive places and moments themselves?
Look, over thousands of years, pious pilgrims have venerated these Hindu shrines and Buddhist temples and Christian churches and Muslim mosques. We've got to respect the fact that these are theirs. And as I said, thousands of people venerate these places. We have to photograph sensitively. We're in their space. So we have to give it the proper reverence that it deserves. We're just there to document.
All right. This is a dodgy question, but where do you personally draw the line between appreciation and appropriation?
Well, I have two philosophies in life. One of them is, I prefer to beg for forgiveness than rather ask for permission. So that means when I go and photograph, I take my photograph first, and then they say, oh, excuse me, no photography. Well, I've got my photograph. Fantastic, so I don't have to worry. If I ask for permission, they'll say no, which means I can't take a photograph. If you ask in Sri Lanka, they'll say, you have to get a letter from your grandmother's auntie, and you've got to get it stamped by the proctor and the doctor, and then the lawyer will have to stamp it, and then you have to send it and wait 10 years. So take the shot. I prefer just take the shot and deal with the consequences afterwards. Sigiriya is a good example. Sigiriya, you can go and shoot and photograph the frescoes, the beautiful frescoes, and so long as you don't use flash. The flash could damage those beautiful works. So you can, you can photograph the frescoes, no problem at all. They don't have a problem. You go to the museum, which is just outside the entrance, and they've got beautiful artifacts and a little model of Sigiriya. But you go to the fresco, the caves, and they won't allow you to photograph. So I'm like, why? These are replicas. Oh, no, you can't photograph. I can photograph the original, but I can't photograph the replica. Just doesn't make sense. That's Sri Lanka for you. The other philosophy I have is I can resist anything but temptation. Well, that's another story.
Right. Related question. As a Sri Lankan, how do you negotiate between photographing sacred spaces without turning them into aesthetic objects?
Understanding your subject is most important. Selfies, I don't get selfies. I don't get why people do that. We have to respect the images that we worship. We've got to educate the tourists not to have their back towards Buddha statues and take selfies or take photographs. I have a press pass, so I was lucky enough to be at Gangarama alongside your President and Prime Minister. And the Prime Minister was standing next to me, and I thought, you know what would be a great shot? Would be a shot from overhead with her and the Indian relics, the stunning Indian relics. And as I took my camera out, I was stopped by security, and they said no selfies, and I got it. I wasn't trying to take a selfie, that's not me. But, they thought I was trying to take a selfie. I get it. We mustn't do that. We've really got to understand our subject, and it's really important that we teach the visitors this as well, so we don't offend anybody's religion.
Have you ever looked at an old photograph of a place and realized that you had changed more than the place itself?
Seneka, we're changing all the time. Let's hope it's for the better. The monuments don't, thankfully.
Okay. Photography freezes a moment, but travel unfolds over time. Are there moments when you've experienced in Sri Lanka that simply refuse to be captured by the camera?
Yeah, as I said before, Alkana, purely because they put these roofs on and whatever, and the light changes. I was very lucky to get a good shot of Alkana because, we got lovely sky and so on and so forth. So, yes, that's been a problem.
Do you think time itself becomes a subject in this book?
Photography is the capture of a moment in time. That's what photography is. And in a way, my books are timeless because it's the definition of history that does not change.
Okay. Is there such a thing as ethical travel in a country layered with history, poverty, and belief?
Well, there is so much that one could say about this subject, but many travel companies in Sri Lanka, like Cinnamon, are very conscious of the eco, the ethical, and the sustainable travel. We've got to respect the locals and learn from them. Yala, you've got 400 jips going into Yala. I never go to Yala. I go to Kumano, I go to Wilpattu. Marissa, the whale watching. We've got far too many vessels going out there chasing whales. We need guidance and regulation here. And we need to educate the visitor as well. And we have to protect our wildlife and have the right balance. Luckily, there are very, very dedicated Sri Lankans on this at the moment, in wildlife and all of this, who are there as conservationists to protect and to advise. So I think we will get there, because we've got a fantastic bunch of young people who are dedicated to the cause.
If a young Sri Lankan were to travel to the island with this book in hand, what would you hope they would see differently by the end of the journey?
Well, my book is very concise. It's very visual. And for Sri Lankans, I hope it helps them reconnect. I do sell to a lot of Sri Lankans. I sell in Sri Lanka. It's the best-selling guide in Sri Lanka at the moment. You can get it from Sarasavi. A quick point out to Sarasavi outside. But it sells all over Sri Lanka. And also I'm selling in the UK. And a lot of Sri Lankans are buying, and they want to reconnect with Sri Lanka.
Right. We have a few more minutes before we open the floor for Q&A. So, shall I ask you one more question before we talk about your novel?
Okay.
Yeah?
Okay.
Okay. In an age of fast travel, social media, and instant images, What worries you most about how places like Sri Lanka are being seen, and what gives you hope?
Look, social media-wise, very little is negative. It's all positive, and that's good. Visitors go back from here with the best experience, and sharing instant imagery is part of what they do. But really, it's phenomenally possible. People have a wonderful time in Sri Lanka. Frankly, it's the best location you could come to. The people, the food, the hotels, and the wonderful locations, it's all there.
Right. My final question. Your novel, The Seventh Shrine, explores Sri Lanka through adventure and myth. Do you see the novel as a continuation of your photographic work, just in another language?
So when I did the research for my book, by the way, it was edited beautifully. It was proofread beautifully by Roshana Jayasinghe, who's sitting in the audience. It's a good job she's sitting there, although I would have fired her otherwise. I had done all this amazing research for the book, and I used the history to write a novel. And the novel it's basically a fictional thriller based in Sri Lanka during the last days of the war. It's about an English girl who goes back to Sri Lanka for the funeral of her father, who was an archaeologist, and he leaves her an ola leaf, which takes on a treasure hunt. It'll be an amazing cinematic film, and Sri Lanka has had a lot of films made here, but they don't portray Sri Lanka. They portray another country. So it's got everything. The film is like Indiana Jones, and it's a cross between that and a Da Vinci Code. And as Ashok Ferry always says, you need a good dodgy minister in there. So I've got a good dodgy minister in there as well. So hopefully next year we can start the filming, if we can get all the money in. And I might come around the audience with a hat a bit later.
Right. To close this session, before opening the floor for Q&A, Eshan, I want to say that listening to you, one feels that travel is less about movement and more about attention. Thank you for making this session a most satisfying and enjoyable one.
Thank you very much. Thank you.